Thank you very much. Passed. Okay. So we'll move through to an update on the implementation of the Council's Healthy Food Action Plan, and we have Tony. Tony. Sorry.
Sorry, I've been talked to.
Yeah, all good.
Kia ora.
Kia ora and welcome. So we've got a brief update here.
Sure.
And I know that there will be questions. So if you want to give us a quick chat about it, and then maybe a little bit of background for those who weren't around last term.
Sure, kia ora. The City Council, you've asked for an update on the Healthy Food Action Plan, which we're now bringing to you. The action plan contains 17 actions, which are partly completed mostly, also a mix of fully completed and partly completed. The actions were undertaken within existing budgets and within existing priorities for the Council, so we haven't really got a separate budget or separate program specific to food, so that's something to think about, I guess. But the important thing really is that we've achieved these actions in collaboration across the council and within with our community partners. We've just heard from one of our fabulous community partners, the DHB, but we have many others as well. So working with the community, working across the organisation, we've managed to deliver these actions for the community. Obviously, some of the highlights for the, and obviously the reports in there mentions them, but there's a few I just want to point out. We've got about 30 community gardens in Christchurch. We've got about 10 farmers markets. Christchurch is seen nationally as one of the leaders in food resilience for New Zealand. We're often held up as an exemplar, both for the actions we take, but also the partnerships we form around the food activity. We've got a wonderful network called the Food Resilience Network locally, who are trying to drive changes in the region, and they've been delivering a whole lot of activity as well. But we've also got some specific actions the council's been taking. For example, we've created a healthy food and drink policy, which enables our facilities and sports venues to encourage healthier food choices in those locations. We've donated 1,300 edible trees to schools and community gardens around the city. We've just recently mapped and then published on SmartView the map of the edible trees growing throughout the city. There's 6,800 edible trees growing mostly in streets, but also in parks throughout the city. We've got the Innovation and Sustainability Fund has been helping projects such as the City Harvest, the Christchurch Food Bank, which delivers an extraordinary 2 million meals worth of food that have been collected and recovered from supermarkets and hospitality places, and they're delivering food to the most vulnerable in our community, which is a wonderful social enterprise. But there are many other things that fund has been supporting along the lines of food, but also the community boards have been supporting community gardens and many other activities in their own areas as well. So there's been a great deal of support from the council for the local sort of food growing and awareness. Another example, the Botanical Gardens Tea House has been offered to the Canterbury Horticultural Society, and they've teamed up with Enviro Hub Canterbury to deliver an educational space in the Botanical Gardens. It also connects up with the Curator's House, where they have the vegetable garden that's grown there, and that's been used as an education space to teach people how to grow food in their own homes. So there's a range of sorts of things that the council's been involved in, and again I just want to reiterate the importance of those partnerships to deliver these actions. At the moment now we're saying we've pretty much completed the action plans, and we're really asking the question of what would you like us to do now.
Okay, Kia ora, thank you very much. Questions, we've got Anne first, yeah, and then Yanni, then Andrew.
Thanks, Tony. It's a really great report, actually, really clear and really encouraging. Thank you. Just a couple of questions. Where does Grow Ōtautahi fit in with our big picture here?
Yes, it's fully aligned. The Autumn Festival, which was held a few years ago, and then now the Ōtautahi Grow Festival coming up in March, they're expecting about 15,000 people to that event, and as part of that they've got school gardens, so the schools are being involved with display gardens for obviously what they're interested in, and it'll be, I imagine food will be a large part of that, but also teaching people how to cook as part of that as well, and then just really profiling what you can do in your own home, on your own neighbourhood. So all the community groups such as the Community Gardens Association and They'll be present, so connecting the community to those groups and enabling them to take part in a more full way. So we're very supportive of the Grow Te, the Innovation and Sustainability Fund, that this committee made a decision to support that as well, but also the Botanical Gardens, and I think the events team have supported that event.
Is there any way, should we elevate that a bit more, or do you feel that we're giving it the support, as much support as we should?
So the event, obviously we have in the past had a much larger event, which was the Ellerslie Flower Show, and that was a very, very significant event. This is more of a community scale event. So I guess that they are trying to size it appropriately for Christchurch without a lot of financial risk, and still enabling the good story and the benefits of the larger event, I guess. So it's probably just a matter of building support over time.
Right.
Start small and then see where it goes. Yeah.
And one last question, if I may. Do we have a register of all the agencies who are addressing food poverty? And would that be something that, I mean, I think that would be useful, to be honest. And is there a way that we could do that?
Yes, we don't have it, and we can.
That would be a terrific thing to have, I think, from our point of view.
So just filling on the mapping of the food system, which we were just hearing with the HB, that's understanding the food system would be an example of doing that, where you say, where does the food come from? Who are all the actors? How does the food waste get dealt with? You know, who's sharing food waste around the city in terms of reusing it and so on. So getting that food system map would help us to answer that question. Yeah.
It would be very good to know who is addressing food insecurity and just have a comprehensive picture of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Yanni?
Thanks. Thanks, Tony, and thanks for bringing the information to us. I was just checking what the sort of process is for getting actions that you'd like that staff would think would be important to achieve the actions in here for funding, and just, what my understanding is this is reviewed every July. Is that been happening to date, or is that something that a resolution would kind of help?
So I'm not aware of that specific review time frame. The suggestion in this report is to link the future action plans that we might have around foods into the climate change work program. Food and climate change have a strong connection for various reasons, but the key one is that actually, if you look at a household consumption footprint, about half of that is related to food. So if you're trying to minimise emissions as a household, then food's a good place to start, but there are many other reasons why you want to address food as well. So the suggestion here is to work up a new program of work around food as part of the climate change action planning process.
I guess I would be quite concerned about that, and I was kind of just trying to understand how council could, we've just heard the previous speaker, do more with a plan that we've already agreed to, but we've actually seen quite slow progress on some issues, and we've sort of lacked the budget to kind of implement some of the action. So I'm really interested in understanding what discrete piece of work or resolution we should put today to further pursue these things.
So it's up to this committee to decide how they want to proceed. Ultimately, we've suggested a pathway forward, but in terms of the budgets and what have you, that needs to obviously go through our regular budgeting process, a long-term plan.
I think that's one of the problems in general with council strategies, is that we tend to adopt lots of things and put resolutions or actions in around every year looking at it, but we don't, and then it just sort of falls by the wayside. So I'm really keen to see this pursued. I did wonder whether there was an opportunity. I know you've done some other workshops or forums with community groups. Given what we've heard, would there be an opportunity to bring the report, the healthy food action plan, together and have a bit of a joint forum with some of the partner agencies and the groups that are involved, just to check in about the direction, the progress, and then kind of get a bit into our annual plan or LTP? Would that be something that we could do?
So I think the important point you're making is that if we're going to be looking at a new plan for food, we should be doing it collaboratively, and I totally agree. That's absolutely important. Yes.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, I guess I was not thinking we needed a new plan, but maybe use the existing one as a basis for looking at
Sure.
at it. And just the final question I had is there any work going on in regards to the marketing and the promotion of unhealthy food across council? The bus stop issue, which comes up time again. We're happy to get money for bus stops to promote McDonald's outside schools, when we've heard, very clear evidence, I think, that there's some communities where that's having a really negative impact.
So I think that the response to that last point about how we manage the marketing of or unhealthy options, I suppose, through our facilities is actually linked into the food and drink policy. That's one of the ideas that sits behind that, was we want to promote healthy food options, and if this council wants to go the next step and try and discourage unhealthy options, then I guess that needs to make that decision as a policy decision, and then we work to implement that.
Can I just note, the decisions around funding rest with councillors clearly around annual plan, but staff had assumed that given the draft annual plan is out for consultation, that any change would come as a result of submissions and your consideration of your final plan later this financial year. And so we have had our eye on the long-term plan to put to you to affect any funding changes that you want. And I just also want to pick up in terms of the point around community groups. Tony can send an email out to the relevant, or we can ask our colleagues across the organisation to send an email out to the relevant community groups, but it's not really our role to be seen to be lobbying for submissions to be made to the annual plan. But we can send an email to note to groups that it is available for them if they wish to make submissions. That would be as far as we would go.
I was just interested at a governance level, though, how you elevate the reviews of the actions to, at a governance level, a decision about we need X amount of money to put, 10 extra water fountains in the suburban parks, for example. We don't seem...
It's an LTP consideration, unless you direct as part of your annual plan that you want further action on.
Well, but it's already in here. It's already in our plan.
Okay, so how about as a way forward at this point? So we do have, there's two key things here, is that the discouraging of unhealthy options and the healthy versus unhealthy is quite a different issue to the climate related stuff when it comes to production and waste. And so that discussion, I think, is needs to be had, because it's quite different when it comes to healthy food. But the annual plan stuff, is it possible to get some information together on things that Councillor Johansson has mentioned, potentially how much it would cost for the additional drinking fountains or whatever, in case that was needed for the annual plan? If people sent through, if you're able to send through some of the things from here that you might like.
Or maybe we just have a workshop with our partners and come up. But this plan is supposed to be reviewed every year in July, and we should be getting, what we seem to have the gap is we don't get the results of that review to inform our decision making at a governance level around setting budgets. So I think that's a different issue than checking in, but I think in terms of moving forward, let's have a workshop or a briefing or a forum with the groups that are playing a key role, but like the point that Anne's made, and look at what we could, what's working, what's not working, and how we can improve.
Okay, organise that. Andrew?
Great, thank you. Just two relatively quick questions, both relating to information on the table in Appendix A. So, edible plants, item number 7, refers to the completion of the tree policy supporting community planting activities. How far away is the completion of the tree policy?
It's very close to being completed. That's my understanding. It's obviously not an area that I'm directly working, but we're trying to influence it. But I understand it's been drafted and we've been reviewing it, and it's very close to being completed.
Community boards have had a workshop.
Right, excellent. So that, obviously realising it's still in draft form at the moment, that would support community planting of edible food.
Correct.
Yeah, great. And then second question, water fountains. There are 16 in the central city. Are you able to tell us how many there are citywide?
So they've been mapped and they are on Smart View, but I don't know
Okay.
the total number of
But I
them.
can have a
But
look
you
at
can
that.
go- if
That's
you
great.
go Smart View, you'll see drinking fountains, click on it and you'll see where they are and how many. But they tend to be located around parks and also the cycleways.
Yep.
But yeah, there's probably in the order of about sort of 60, something like that.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Healthy food action plan were approved by the council almost for 3 years. But I remember in the beginning, particularly for the surrounding area, low income and social area, those community make a presentation to the council. One aspect is kind of the maybe concern or maybe try to reduce those the kind of proximity of fast food outlet. The other one is encourage to provide a healthy alternative choice. But from your action plan undertaking, I still don't know where about, all those surrounding area, particularly for the school, those pupils, students, now they have alternative choice, can get those healthy food. Where about in this action plan?
Okay, so prior to the action plan being drafted, there was advice given to this council about how to respond to the location of businesses that are selling unhealthy options, and it found that it was quite limited in terms of its ability to respond to that. The focus was suggested around marketing, which I think we've already brought up today. The idea that we might be able to manage the way that it's marketed, but we don't directly manage the types of businesses that are occurring in commercial areas. What we can do is respond to the impacts that those businesses might have. For example, noise and litter and disruption to the local community. So the reports I've referenced in there as a background. So if you wanted to go into the detail about that specific question, you can look at those reports. But we were very limited, and it was suggesting that maybe we should look at advocating to central government to allow local governments stronger powers when it comes to locating, for example, fast food outlets near schools.
Tony, do you think that while the reports are, the information's referenced there, do you think you could pop it up either in the hub and send people a link to say that it's there or something like that? If someone could do that, just as a background for people who, that would be
Sure.
really good.
Yes, no problem.
Thanks. Anne?
Just a question of you, Madam Chair. If we wanted to add an action to the action plan, what would be the best way to go forward with that? For example, I'm thinking of the register for those agencies who are already addressing food poverty in the city. How would we go about making that an action?
I think that initially, Yanni's idea of a workshop of some sort, so that way we'll be able to collate stuff and have some good information about whether a simple register per se would be helpful, or just listing people may not be, but maybe making the most of the various networks and things and assisting each other and things. But if we had a workshop initially, then we'd be able to flesh that out a bit more, and that something could come from that. So we've got some words coming up on the screen very shortly. Yeah. So if you have a quick look at that. And it may be that we're able to hold that maybe after our next committee meeting or something like that. The plan is to do it in the near future, to get onto it. Okay? Is that okay with you, Yanni?
My preference, but I'm not so keen on one. I just don't know that we should really be doing that until we've had that workshop. Then maybe that's the best way forward.
It's still just noting. The number one is still just noting that there will be some additional stuff on food that comes as part of the climate change strategy. It doesn't preclude any additional healthy food policy stuff.
Well, I don't want staff to then turn around and say we're working to that process rather than, a separate one. So.
Okay, well, I'm happy to remove from after food action plan in the first sentence. because we're going to be considering further actions as part of number 2. And it may be that some are related to the climate strategy. So leave, yeah. So after, note the update on the Healthy Food Action Plan.
Full stop.
Full stop.
Yeah.
Okay?
That would be good. Thank you.
Not a problem.
And if I could just speak to it.
Okay. Any further discussion on that? So do I have, Yanni? I was going to get a mover next and then...
Oh yeah, I was happy to move.
Okay, so Yanni moving, Jake seconding. Do you want to speak to it?
Well, I think, you know, it's really good to get this update, and you know, there's actually some things that have gone really well. There's some areas where we're a little bit lagging behind, and some areas I think we might want to do things differently. So I just think it's really important as a council that we do have good engagement with our community, and there's a number of wonderful people and groups across health and environment who are doing really amazing stuff in this space. And I just want to acknowledge all those people in our community that are trying to promote healthy food, whether it's the local community gardens or whether it's the ones that are organising workshops with our children. I think for me personally, as someone who represents the Linwood ward, it's really obvious that the mass marketing of fast foods to our communities is having a really detrimental impact. You can listen to lots of online interviews with Radio New Zealand or Google. What we are seeing is increased evidence, as has been pointed out earlier, from the health sector about the particularly negative impact this is having in some communities, and we need to address it because it has a huge cost to us all in terms of dealing with the consequence of what's going on. So I welcome getting the update. I think it would be really good to engage a bit more with those in the community and come up with some really tangible actions that we could pursue. I do think there's a wider issue around council, and I'll keep saying this to, you know, every time we adopt a strategy or an action plan, we need to start looking at what the budgets are attached to it, because I don't think it's right that we keep adopting things without the ability to implement them. And that's probably been a huge issue for me around a number of implementation plans or action plans that we've embraced. So let's try and learn from this and see how we can actually, when we agree to do stuff, get it done rather than just have it languish. But I welcome further work going on this regard. Thanks.
Thank you, Yanni. Anyone else? No? In that case, I'll put that. All in favour say aye. Aye. Any against? Carried.